everybody, it's Matt from the house, and I'm here with Jayson from Burton, and he's going to give us a little run through of the 22-23 step-on lineup. Let's check this stuff out. All right, so step-on is continuing, and it is stronger than ever, right?
Yep. I mean, it continues to grow. I mean, the step-on system is definitely the best-selling boot and binding combination in the industry.
And we obviously got those upgrades last year on the toe clips, so it's just a little bit easier to get in and out of. Also eliminates that little bit of that tapping noise as well.
This, because as the binding flexes with the board, it's a reflex base plate, so it's flexing. We're getting a little bit of clicking noise. It's purely audible, but we wanted to eliminate that. But also a lot less side pressure. Some people with wider feet were experiencing that side pressure in the feet. The new toe hooks definitely helped with that. There's a lot smoother in and out as well.
And then we've got men's and women's versions of the step-on binding. What's the content of the base plate on this?
So this is just the standard one. So this has the 30% glass loaded nylon composite on the base plate.
So very comparable to most of the bindings in Burton's line.
Yep, yeah, like a Mission or like a Cartel or Malavita. Yep, so very, very similar, just kind of right down the middle, flex to it. And just, the power you can generate with step-on, just because, you're held back here, you're not pushing on the strap that's mounted over here.
Right.
They're just so much more responsive. So the base plates don't need to be crazy stiff.
Right.
So.
You're actually lifting your heel side edge from your heel side edge,
Yep.
and you're actually lifting your toe side edge from your toe side edge, and
Yep.
not relying on the strap as much. So obviously these are just a couple of the colorways in the men's and the women's. There's going to be definitely more options other than these. So check those out as soon as step-on releases later this fall. All right, and then new last year, Burton introduced the Genesis, which is pretty cool because they basically have taken kind of the heel hammock design from the standard strap binding, and they've incorporated it into a step-on. So what differs the Genesis from the standard one?
Mainly it's in the high back. The base plate is very similar. It's still that 30% glass nylon tray on both the men's and women's, but you do get the kickback hammock. So the actual material on the high back itself is actually softer.
Okay.
And then also that hammock provides basically like a layer of suspension, basically making it a little bit softer and a little bit more forgiving than the standard one.
So the cool thing about that is that when you do lean back on it, you are, like you were saying, it's like a suspension. You're actually getting a little bit of a smoother, easier feeling, but obviously if the base plate is the same, we're still getting a quick response from toe to heel. So number one question we always get is, why the Genesis over the standard version? And it's mainly because you are getting a smoother feel, but you're not losing any edge-to-edge response. So on the Genesis and the Escapade with that high back, it's basically smoothing out your edge and making it feel a little bit easier edge-to-edge, but you still get the quickness just like that standard version. And then last up for the bindings, we have the X in both men's and in women's, and this thing is pretty insane. It's I can feel it's super, super light, but it's also very, very quick edge to edge.
Yeah, so when you head to the Step-on X, so this is where you get that carbon blended nylon. So instead of fiberglass, we're using some carbon in there. So it's a 50-50 carbon blend. So definitely drops the weight, but obviously carbon makes it extremely stiff and extremely responsive. So with the general nature of Step-on being a lot more responsive with the carbon, this thing is really super responsive. But it's not going to create dead spots because of that reflex base plate. So you're still going to get the base plate to flex with it, but you just get much quicker toe and heel edge response. And even in the high back, it is carbon as well. So it's a pretty stiff responsive system.
And this thing is amazing, but the big question we do get is about these versus the regular step-ons. A lot of people think that if they spend more money, they're actually getting a better binding, and it's not better, it's just different. It's incredibly aggressive from edge to edge. So if that's what you want, the X is definitely your binding, but if you want to have that little bit easier, smoother feel, you actually probably be a little bit better off in the Genesis or in the standard version. But again, if you want that lightweight, ultra quick, responsive feel from edge to edge, whether it's a men's or women's, you want to go with the X. All right, now we're looking at boots. We're gonna have a few more options in boots than we have binding, just because your boots are your #1 most important piece of equipment. So you wanna find that one boot that fits and feels and flexes just the way you want it to fit. So we're gonna start off with the ruler, and for the women, we're gonna start off with the Limelight. So what do we have going on inside these ones?
So this is kind of where the step-on system in our line starts. Kind of like we were talking about before, it's not necessarily because it's less expensive, it means it's worse. It's just a different feel.
Right.
So, but this is kind of where it starts. It is our imprint 2-liner setup, so still heat moldable. It does have a lock-up cuff, so it does have webbing cuff on the inside that does give you really good heel hold. But you've got one single boa system here. So it is the sequence boa. So it's kind of the way that we route the cables in this is a little different. So one side of the boa actually does the top, the other side does just the bottom part. So it does give it a more even feel instead of just pulling the bottom and the top together.
Oh, okay. So it's not just pulling all these strings up to the top.
Yep,
it's actually pulling from the top and from the bottom.
So it's actually giving it almost like what a double zone would give you.
Okay.
But without as much adjustability. Another thing that's actually new to step on for this year, we've got a new pant clip on the back.
Oh, okay.
Through some consumer insights, especially people that are taller, they were having problems, if they don't have the extra long pants. Their pants were pulling out of the clip, because again, you have to have your pant cuff back here.
Tucked in, so
there so it doesn't get wedged
into the binding,
in. Yeah, basically added a little rubber topper to it that does have some teeth on it, so it grips the back of the pant. So
oh, okay. In. Yeah, so once you got it, easy to slide in there, but it doesn't come out super. It comes out easily, but it doesn't come out super easy. So it doesn't pull
it only comes out when you want it to. Cool. But yeah, the Limelight, and obviously it's the women's version, men's version here, and the ruler. If you like a little softer setup, softer flexing boot, the ruler would be a good choice.
Nice, easy, smooth feel. All right, for those guys like Jason and myself that do like a traditional lace, Burton has the Kendo, which is a traditional lace step-on boot. So what do you like about this thing so much?
Laces they work. They work great. They fit well and everything. I just happen to really like the fit of this boot personally. Okay. And a lot of it has to do with the articulation of the cuff, a little bit wider toe box. I love the imprint 3-liner setup in it. It's got an additional focus cuff on the inside. It's just a really good kind of soft flexing boot, and that's really what I like about it. And one thing, these little anchors here, when you crank on this lace, this really snugs everything up around your foot. So there's no need for like a strap or anything like that. It just gives you really good support along the bottom part of your foot. And then, the top part, you can, lace it however you want. If you want a softer feel, like I personally lace mine up to here instead of all the way up.
And you can kind of customize it a little bit easier too. With just like with most lacing boots, you've got lower, middle, and upper. And you always want that middle zone holding your heel in, but then you can kind of customize just like Jayson does, and you can actually have that boot fit exactly the way you want it to fit. So if you do like that customization, and then like Jayson was saying, you like that little easier, softer feel, but maybe you want a little bit more performance compared to the ruler, then the Kendo is the boot for you. And next up for men, we've got the Swathe, and for the women, we have the Ritual. So very similar flexing boot to the Kendo, but this one is a little bit different. What do we got going on in these boots compared to that one?
The biggest difference here would obviously be the double boa.
Okay.
So you've got, the side boa here just controls the bottom, but then you've got the H4 on the main system here. Again, that's the breakaway mechanism. With this boot, it is on the kind of softer side of things, and it does have that articulated cuff, but it also has that ultra weave construction on the outer. It does have a waterproof coating on it. It's not fully vented like running shoes are, but the construction method of it reduces a lot of paneling, and it reduces the weight of the boot. Like they're extremely lightweight boots.
Yeah. And if you've ever tried on a pair of those running shoes that are woven together, they're not made out of mesh, you'll know how well they fit. And again, like you was saying, even though it does have that waterproof piece underneath it, but it does actually help this boot fit incredibly well and fit a lot better because it's wrapping around your foot a little bit more like a sock than an actual boot.
An imprint 3-liner setup like you would get with like a Kendo or like a Photon, but definitely a much softer feel than what a Photon would be. So if you like a really soft kind of freestyle feel, that's where the Swathe and the Ritual would be a good choice.
All right, and probably the best-selling boots in the step-on lineup, we actually have the Photon for men, and we have the Felix for the ladies. And why is this such an amazing boot?
It's just one of those, it works really well for everybody. It's a great kind of medium to stiff, support, like flexing on it. It's got the imprint 3 liner set up on both of them. It is, the single construction, doesn't have an articulated cuff, so it does have a much stiffer feel to it. And then also it does have, the most obvious thing you can kind of see too is the external snugger strap. So if people like to have that feel and that support of a strap, this is kind of where you go with that model.
So it's basically that good all-mountain, go anywhere, do anything boot. You can obviously loosen it up a little bit for a softer feel. You can crank this thing down for a stiffer feel. And then obviously, just like the regular Photon, we also have that really cool Vibram outsole on this. And same on the Felix too.
Yep, so you get maximum traction without sacrificing like any board feel. This is the traction lug sole, so it actually has like treads on the sides of the actual lugs, so it gives you, like in slough, it gives you a lot better traction. It's a little bit more premium, materials when you bump up to this, but great support, great edge control, great fit. Both of these boas are the H4, so if you do slip a step or break them off, like they have a breakaway mechanism built in.
So they pop right off and you can just snap it right back in.
Snap it back on,
Without breaking your boa.
Yep.
So the big question we always get about the step-on system is people want to know what boots to get. And if that person is kind of like, I just don't know which boot I should get, go with this boot. For guys, do the Photon. For women, do the Felix. It's kind of like the Burton Custom. No one's gonna hate it. You're gonna love this boot. You can kind of customize a little bit, and it's gonna be able to ride anywhere and do anything. And another thing to note is these are coming in a soft version as well that's scheduled to release a little bit later on the season, right?
Yep.
All right, and last up, this is actually my favorite boot in the step-on lineup because we're actually doing 3 different lacing zones, and it is a little bit stiffer, but like I always say, you can always take a stiffer boot and make it softer. You can't take a softer boot and make it stiffer, and this boot has ultimate adjustability when it comes to that.
Yep, so kind of going off of one of our team favorite boots, the Ion, has been in line for years. Definitely on the more stiffer supportive side, so the faster you go, the bigger you go on jumps, maybe the bigger terrain you ride. Having that stiffer boot really gives you that ankle support. Cut through the chunder, gives you that better edge control, just better support overall. And the Ion has always been a go-to in that. So bringing it into the step-on, kind of like you said, we've got a couple different lacing zones here. So we do have, for the main lacing part, you do have our traditional speed zone. So you do have an upper and a lower adjustment with the speed zone, and then we also have, you still have the snugger strap, with the H4 BOA dial on it. Another thing that makes the Ion, a little bit more premium is you do go to our life liner. So definitely a little higher end liner. It's got the highest quality heat moldable EVA, so they do last a lot longer. And it also has a foam injected tongue, so the tongue actually creates a lot of response and stuff too. So one thing, when you start getting up into the Ion and some of these really stiffer boots, it's almost like you got to put some time into breaking them in. But once you get them there, they stay there for a long time, and they do last a lot longer than some of the lower end boots.
And one thing that I always say too, especially when it comes to some of these higher end boots, is that they're obviously there for the performance, but they are kind of an investment too. And with that life liner, you're gonna get a boot that's gonna last longer. It's not gonna break down as fast. Not that the boots break down super fast anyway, but for people that are keeping their gear for 10 plus years, and you want a boot that's really gonna stand the test of time, you spend a little bit more money now, and it's going to prevent you from having to replace your boots or replace your liners down the road. And when you do get that extra support on the outside of this boot, and you also get that extra support on that liner too. So again, you might spend a couple extra bucks on this boot, but you're going to get all of that back with the liner and also with the adjustability of this boot, basically having that one boot that can really do everything and can kind of feel like all the boots in the lineup too.
We do have our Vibram traction lug outsole on this one as well. Cool. So again, the Vibram outsoles, they last a lot longer and give you better traction, without losing board feel too. So just another added extra value once you step up to the Ion.
So like I was saying with the Photon too, how it's kind of like that boot where if you don't know what boot to get, that's the boot you go with. If you got a couple extra bucks, it actually can't hurt to put it into the Ion. It's gonna last you a little bit longer as you get better with your riding. You're gonna appreciate that little stiffer feel to it. And also you can customize it. You can soften it up by loosening up the upper lacing to make it feel like the Ion. And then you can crank it down if you wanna have something that's gonna react really, really quick for those faster days. You really get everything in this boot. All right, Jason, thanks for giving us a little run through on the new 22-23 lineup for Step-On stuff. And if you guys got any questions beyond what we talked about in this video, definitely leave some comments down below. We're on there every single day trying to answer your questions. We want to make sure we get you into some rad gear, but most importantly, we want to make sure that it's actually going to fit you and your riding style. Also, make sure to like, subscribe, definitely get that notification bell on too so you can find out when all the new videos drop. Make sure to grab yourself a new set of Step-Ons and get out and ride, because any day of riding is a good day of riding. Let's see how many people noticed that I said top and bottom